Some of the biggest, known as megachurches, are facing challenges as the culture around organized religion changes.
The former home of the Houston Rockets was never meant to feel quiet. 16,000 seats curve upward in perfect symmetry. 2 massive screens hang over a stage built for spectacle. Lights designed for concerts wait on preset cues. Every camera angle still exists, rehearsed, calibrated, ready. At its peak, this building hosted more than basketball. It hosted belief at scale. Lakewood Church drew as many as 52,000 people every weekend across multiple services. Annual revenue reached nearly $90 million. The operation employed hundreds of staff. The sermons were broadcast across the United States and into more than 100 countries. This was not just a church, it was a media empire, engineered for consistency and reach. A brand polished for television, a machine designed to deliver the same experience every time, to everyone. The transformation itself was monumental. A former NBA arena reworked at enormous cost, rebuilt not for worship alone, but for production. Offices, broadcast studios, children's ministries stacked across multiple floors. Every inch of the building pointed toward one assumption, that the seats would always be full. And as long as they were, nothing else seemed to matter. The scale of Lakewood Church was never cosmetic. The technology inside the building was not added for comfort, it was added for necessity. High-definition screens were installed so that no seat felt distant. Lighting rigs were designed to shift emotion on command. Audio systems were calibrated for crowds measured in the tens of thousands. Every service required crews, rehearsals, timing, and coordination more common to live television than worship. None of this worked halfway. A half-filled arena does not feel intimate, it feels exposed. The energy that once made the room feel alive came from density, bodies in seats, voices rising together, a crowd large enough to carry the message before the message ever landed. Behind the scenes, the costs followed the same logic. Staffing levels assumed constant scale, broadcast expenses assumed constant reach, budgets assumed constant giving. The spectacle wasn't an enhancement, it was structural. Lakewood was designed for momentum, not fluctuation. Growth wasn't just encouraged, it was required. As long as attendance climbed, the system looked invincible. But systems built on crowds share one weakness. They cannot shrink quietly. And when the seats begin to thin, the building doesn't hide it, it amplifies it. In late August 2017, Hurricane Harvey stalled over Houston. Rain fell without pause. Neighborhoods disappeared underwater. Thousands searched for higher ground. Across the city, schools opened their gyms, churches unlocked their doors, convention centers became shelters. Lakewood Church did not. Online, questions surfaced almost immediately. Why was the largest church in the city still closed? Why were the lights off inside a building built to hold thousands? Lakewood's official explanation came quickly. The church said flooding made access unsafe. An associate pastor repeated the claim.
But outside the building, residents began posting photos. Dry streets, visible parking lots, locked glass doors. The images spread faster than any sermon ever had. Local reporters drove by. No flood warning, no visible water, just an empty entrance and a city in crisis. Pressure mounted. Within 48 hours, Lakewood reversed course, announcing it would open and partner with relief agencies. But the timing mattered. To critics, the church hadn't led, it had reacted. The moment did not cost Lakewood money that week. It cost something harder to recover: credibility. Because when the city needed shelter, the building designed for crowds stayed silent, and people noticed. The criticism that followed did not come from outside the church, it came from within American Christianity itself. Pastors, theologians, and longtime church leaders began asking the same question, quietly at first. What exactly was being taught? The issue was not scandal, it was absence. Lakewood sermons avoided controversy by design. There was little talk of sin, no talk of judgment, almost no talk of doctrine. Instead, the message stayed fixed. God wants you to win. Better days are coming. Speak the right words and doors will open. For critics, this wasn't heresy, it was emptiness. They argued that the sermons were not wrong, they were vague. In public interviews, that vagueness became harder to miss. Direct theological questions were met with careful language. Specific beliefs were replaced with encouragement. Sharp edges were sanded down for mass appeal. The strategy worked. No one felt excluded. No one felt challenged. But faith built to offend no one also anchored nothing. Without doctrine, the sermons became interchangeable. Without tension, belief became affirmation. And slowly, the question changed. Not who disagrees with this church, but what does this church actually stand for? The answer, for many, was harder to find than it used to be. On March 15, 2020, Lakewood Church went dark. The doors closed, the arena emptied. The crowds that once carried the energy of each service vanished overnight. The broadcast did not stop. Services moved online with the same polish, the same lighting, the same music cues, the same camera angles. But something changed. Without thousands of voices in the room, the words landed differently. The sermon sounded familiar, then repetitive, then predictable.
Each week promised breakthrough. Each message affirmed victory. Each service followed the same rhythm. In a packed arena, that rhythm felt powerful. On a screen, alone, it felt thin. Viewers began to notice how little varied. The stories blurred together. The language repeated itself. What once felt uplifting now felt interchangeable. The production still worked. The message still streamed. But without applause, without response, without the emotional lift of a crowd, the limits of the formula became visible. The pandemic didn't attack Lakewood's theology, it removed its amplifier. And in the silence that followed, the spectacle no longer hid the structure beneath it. For the first time, people were not reacting to the experience, they were listening. Attendance numbers told a quiet story. Once, the arena brimmed with over 50,000 worshipers across multiple services. Now, estimates suggested closer to 25,000. Sections were roped off. Seats that once pulsed with energy now sat empty. Behind the scenes, financial strain was mounting. Budgets built for full crowds began to wobble. Documents leaked to reporters suggested a nearly one-third drop in revenue since 2019. Millions in lost donations, shrinking reserves, a church whose scale demanded constant giving but no longer received it. During the pandemic, Lakewood secured a $4.4 million Paycheck Protection Program loan to keep 350 staff members on payroll. Public backlash forced the fund's return, raising further questions about transparency and fiscal health. Then, in late 2021, a plumber repairing a wall discovered $600,000 in cash and checks hidden behind bathroom tiles. Money linked to a 2014 theft, never solved, suddenly reappeared. Each revelation compounded the uncertainty. Each number told a story the polished broadcasts could not hide. The system looked invincible from the outside. Inside, it was fraying. And yet the building still stood gleaming. Empty, expensive, and unyielding. A machine built for growth had begun to leak. The building was massive. The lights still glowed. The cameras still moved across the stage. But no security system, no protocol, no guard could fully protect a structure this size. On February 11, 2024, the risk became reality. A woman carrying an AR-15 rifle entered during a Sunday service. Gunfire erupted. The congregation scrambled. 7-year-old children were caught in the chaos, one critically wounded.
off-duty police officers, quietly stationed for routine security, intervened and neutralized the threat. The immediate danger ended, but the moment left a lasting echo. For years, security teams had quietly acknowledged the truth. A megachurch is never entirely safe. Openness and scale are inseparable from vulnerability. Every seat designed to welcome worshipers also offered opportunity for threat. Every hallway built for flow became a potential bottleneck. Every camera and broadcast feed could not prevent harm. The paradox was clear. The very size that created power now magnified exposure. The very openness that invited faith also invited danger. The building remained a monument, but one that carried its own risk. And the question lingered, unspoken but undeniable. Could an institution this vast, this public, survive its own scale?